Hey everyone, my name's Cody. This is my first time putting a video on YouTube, so I'm going to kick off my new channel by talking about My Hero Academia. I'll try not to ruin it for anyone, but there's going to be a few spoilers ahead. So, I don't watch a lot of anime. I watched a fair amount in high school, but I took a hiatus after a string of bad experiences with series that either dragged on way too long or else just failed to deliver a story that lived up to their aesthetic. Now, after years away from giant mech battles and boob grabs and nosebleeds, I've plunged back in, and I was surprised to find some really great stuff was made while I wasn't looking. It's been pulling me back in. For those of you who don't know, My Hero Academia is set in a fictional near future where 80% of the world's population develops superpowers as children. They call these powers quirks, and in order to keep civilization from crumbling under the chaos of a world filled with superpowered people, they institute laws restricting the use of these powers. Of course, some people break these rules, and that's why the government allows certain licensed individuals to operate as superheroes, and thus you have a story. The bulk of the story takes place at UA Hero Academy, which is essentially a Japanese version of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. It's probably the most popular new anime around, and it isn't hard to see why. It has great character design, beautifully animated battles, and some really funny commentaries on Western comic books. But for my money, there's one aspect of this show that really sets it apart from other popular anime, like Attack on Titan or Sword Art Online. And that's the way it handles its characters' motivations. For a writer, motivation is everything. One of the first things they teach you in creative writing is how a character arc works. First, a protagonist has to want something. Then, there has to be some kind of conflict keeping them from getting the thing that they want. The character has to change in order for that conflict to be resolved, and then the story finally ends and the character either has what they want or they don't. More often than not, especially in anime, when two characters come into conflict, the author intends for you to very clearly believe that one of them is right and the other is wrong. For example, when Daredevil fights the Punisher, you might not necessarily consider Frank Castle to be the villain of the story. You might even agree with him to an extent. But you know that as far as the show is concerned, Murdoch's value system is the one the writers are going to favor. My Hero Academia is guilty of this sometimes too. No one looks at Tomura Shigaraki and thinks, hey, maybe the severed hand guy has a point. But there are places where two characters' interests come into conflict without either being right or wrong, and they're some of the strongest parts of the show. The best one is probably the second most popular fight. It happens during the tournament arc in Season 2. In the fight between Midoriya and Todoroki, there's a lot to appreciate about the choreography of the fight itself, but most of its dramatic tension is built on the show's slow development of its characters up until this point. Midoriya has to literally break his own bones in order to use his power, but he does it anyway to achieve his dream of becoming a hero that people look up to, like All Might. Todoroki resents that so much of his power and status comes from his abusive father, Endeavor, so he refuses to use the left side of his body, which houses the fire abilities he inherited from him, effectively cutting off half of his own power out of spite. There's a lot to unpack in terms of the events that lead up to the fight, and I'm not going to go through all of it. Instead, I want to focus on what's driving them during the actual battle itself. These two don't have a grudge against each other. Neither is morally right or wrong. In fact, in the broader universe of the show, they're actually on the same side. Midoriya, All Might, Bakugo, Todoroki, and even Endeavor are all trying to be heroes. They're trying to be the standard that people look up to for what a person should be. They just have slightly different perspectives on what that means. When we get down to the meat and bones of this fight, the two characters aren't actually in competition for superiority. Todoroki is trying to prove a point to his father, and Midoriya is trying to help Todoroki learn to let go. Todoroki was scarred as a child when his mentally unstable mother poured boiling hot water on the left side of his face because she didn't like the way it reminded her of his father. Remember that next time your mom asks you to take out the trash. Endeavor then sent her away, claiming that she had damaged his prized progeny, the son he was grooming to eventually do what he never could and become the world's greatest hero. Todoroki resents this, blaming his father for his mother's mental state and cutting himself off from his own fire abilities, attempting to prove that he is great even without them or any help from Endeavor. And to be fair, he completely is.
Marina. の振動は。なんだありゃ。
But Midoriya sees the problem with this ideology. By associating his left side with endeavor the way his mother did, Todoroki is essentially sealing off a part of himself. Not only is that unhealthy, Midoriya knows it will keep Todoroki from ever achieving his potential as a hero. Midoriya doesn't know if he can beat Todoroki, and it certainly won't help his situation if Todoroki starts fighting him at full force, but he still presses him to use his left side, fighting at least hard enough to make sure that Todoroki won't be able to win without it. Midoriya wants to win, but he's even more interested in helping Todoroki see that the traits you inherit from your parents don't define you. You're your own person. That's your laugh, your hair, your smile, your stupid, amazing firebending, and denying it doesn't hurt anyone but yourself. I won't tell you how the fight ends, because if you don't already know, I don't want to be the one to ruin it for you. But it's worth seeing. The point is that the conflict between these two characters was never about winning or who's right and who's wrong. It was about pushing themselves and each other to be better. Now that's a good way to write conflict for any story. It keeps the viewer engaged with both characters because under the super-powered brawl, there's a conversation taking place between two adolescents about who they want to be as people and what it means to be a hero. You can also see this kind of motivational work in Bakugo's fight with Uraraka and his joint fight with Midoriya and All Might. There are villains in this show, but they almost seem to exist more as foils to the heroes than as characters with actual narrative consequence. With the possible exception of Stain, who kind of rides that in-between place. Most of the villains in My Hero exist to show us that the students at UA are really on the same side. It's easy to hate Endeavor when Todoroki is talking about his childhood, but it's also easy to forget about a lot of that when he shows up to save everyone from the Nomu. It's complex character work like this that really makes My Hero Academia stand out among its contemporaries. And it gives me hope for the future of anime. So that was my first video. For those of you that don't know me, which is just about all of you, I'm a writer and literary analyst. That's my specialty, and that's what I'm going to be bringing more of to this channel. I want to do videos on books, movies, TV shows, video games, like all my favorite things. If you're interested in seeing more of that, hit the subscribe button. You can also check out my website at codydcampbell.com, where you'll be able to get information about my upcoming novel, Sanctuary. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.